Good morning, I'm Dan Wood at Northern Sun Mercantile. In this video, I'm going to show you how two of us set up and process over 4,000 pounds of chicken per season. I'm going to go into detail on our setup, show off some of our equipment, and kind of the general process, and then we'll go into more detail on all the various aspects from dispatching, scalding, plucking, packaging, cutting down chickens into boneless breasts and leg quarters, and vacuum sealing, and all the bits and pieces that go with it. Stay tuned. Here we're rounding up our birds. This is kind of the way we do it now. We'll pick up the whole chicken tractor, move it out of the way. Cornish crosses don't really go too far, so they'll stay put, and we'll put them in one at a time into the trailer, and then back the trailer right up to the killing cone. You could certainly use poultry crates for this too, and stack them all. We found that the trailer actually works really good because we can give them water. We always put a waterer in there, so they've got unlimited water. Make them as comfortable as possible. You can also add a tarp to the top of it for shade, or a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take the rigid cover from the chicken tractor and put it over the top of the trailer just to give them some shade on the hot days. I'm going to go over some things with our setup here. We have two tables. One's a folding table, one's a stainless steel table. Stainless steel is where we do all of our cutting, everything that touches the food. The folding table is just an area for us to kind of stage stuff kind of away from the mess of processing. It's just kind of an area that we maintain as a clean area. It's nice to have two tables. We use a 10 by 10 pop-up tent. Works great, especially when it's hot. Gives us some shade, and if it rains, keeps us semi-dry. We have stainless steel easy plucker. I purchased this about 5 years ago now, and it's still running strong. Got fingers down in there that the drum spins, and it picks the feathers right off, and we'll go over that in more detail. Easy to clean. We use a very large aluminum pot for scalding. They make specialty scalders, which we're hoping to upgrade to next year, but for now this is the way we're doing it, and have been for the last 5 years. Galvanized steel killing cones I've got set up with buckets. This is where we start the operation. They go into there for draining out. We also have, so we dry pack all of our chickens, our whole chickens to cool. We dry pack them all in ice, in these ice chests. These are some very large Coleman ice chests. We use a turkey fryer thermometer to maintain that heat at 150 degrees. And a bucket heater, which will be going in there in a minute, to try to maintain the temperature without turning the propane on. It's just a stainless steel Amazon bucket heater. We always put a couple of drops of dish liquid, just a couple drops, in our scald water. Just helps break the surface tension, and birds pick easier. Also, the water, it's important to change this out a couple times through processing. They scald better with cleaner water. So as far as knives go, we've got a variety here that we like to use. For evisceration and killing, we use the Victorinox poultry knife. It's a small knife, holds an edge really well, stays really sharp. I sharpen them every time we use them, but we've got 3 of those.
There's just 2 of us processing, so we don't have a ton of knives. And then for parting out, the 6-inch Victorinox boning knife, semi-rigid boning knife, works really well. And I just picked this one up. This is a Dexter. It's actually a beef skinning knife, but people were recommending it, so I thought I'd give it a try, and it does work really well, especially for taking the wings off, because you can kind of get right in there and cut them out without digging into the breast meat. I always use a sharpening stone before we even get started. You know, a little bit of water on there. Maintain that edge. It's easier to keep a knife sharp than it is to sharpen a dull knife, so we always sharpen them every time, regardless of whether they need it or not. I hit them on the stone a little bit just to keep that edge razor sharp. Really sharp knives are very important. Then, you know, throughout the day, you just need a quick touch up on a blade. These pull through ceramic rods work really well. You could actually use that to maintain your edge too in place of this. They both work equally well. That's a little faster. And then just a sharpening steel just to keep the edge nice and true. And we use these. I keep this right on the bench. I use this throughout the day and throughout parting birds out, cutting them up, getting them ready to package. Now, these have already been sharpened, but that's really all there is to it. This one's brand new, so of course the edge is still nice and sharp.
All right, this is just going to be a general overview of our operation, and then we'll go into more detail later. Not actually going to show the killing, but here we're scalding. And the plucker has a water setting. I turn the water valve on, and then turn the plucker on and drop them in. It really only takes about 20 to 30 seconds in there. They come out nice and clean. And out of the plucker, they go onto the evisceration table. The way we work it, I take the legs off, I take the head off, and the oil gland out, and then I slide it on over to Heather. She does the evisceration, and then packs them in ice. We found that there's a pretty healthy market for the feet. If you're interested in saving those, they do make really good stock. We've got a large Jamaican population in our area, and it's a traditional food for them. They make stew with it, and we found we have no problem selling all the feet. Because of the size of our scalder being on the small side, we have found that we should do 2 birds at a time, 2 birds in the plucker, pluck really well. I do have 3 killing cones, so I just kind of cycle them down as I go. And as I pull them out of the plucker, there's already 2 more draining in the cones. So there's always 3 in the cones. I empty the plucker out, get them onto the table, and then I go back, I pull 2 out of the cones, I scald them, I pluck them, I leave them there for a minute, I go get 2 more live birds, dispatch them, and then go back while they're draining. I go back to the plucker and pull the 2 birds that are in there out, get them cleaned up and ready for Heather. And it's just kind of a really good way to constantly keep moving and kind of make our day a little shorter. All right, so we use any stock pot will do for this. Water is 150 degrees. 50 seconds is what we do. But we use a propane burner. We have an electric bucket heater, which helps keep it up to temperature, and a thermometer, because you want it to be between 145 and 150 and no lower than 145 or you won't get a good pluck. But drop the bird in, get the bird wet. I usually switch it around a little bit.
dunk it up and down. And we set the timer for 50 seconds. And just keep dunking it. Don't leave it in the water, because if you do, the meat will actually kind of start to cook and the skin will tear when you pluck it. And to get a good scald on the legs, if you're using them for stock, I usually flip it over midway through and dunk it feet first for a little bit. Just 50 seconds. And the skin on the feet will actually start to pull off and they'll come off pretty clean. So there we go. And now it's going into the plucker. All right, now for the plucker. We use an easy plucker. It's a stainless steel unit with rubber fingers. It's got water hooked to it that sprays down on top of it. If you don't have that and you have a regular plucker without the water, you can always use a hose and just keep water spraying on the bird as it's plucking. But here we go. We're going to pluck this one, turning the water on, turning the plucker on, drop it in. Usually 20-30 seconds in there. You can see when it's fully plucked. And then we shut it off. There's always a few residual feathers that you got to pick, but for the most part, they come out pretty clean. And there we go, on to the next step. So after plucking, these are the next steps that we do. It goes to the evisceration table. You give the head a twist and pull. Detach the head and pull it off. And then we take the legs off next. Pull it out straight. Cut right at the V of the leg. And cut right down through the joint. Kind of check it over for any residual feathers that are left on. Get any of those picked off. This one's pretty clean. And the oil vent, you cut straight down and just kind of fillet that off and get rid of that. Oil gland, rather. And now the crop, make a little nick. You kind of separate it from the skin and the meat. Pull. Get the trachea. And pull straight back. Kind of loosens everything up so it'll pull right out. And we cut down, make a little nick right down near the vent. We can rip that open. You can get your hand in there. And we separate the fat from the gizzard as much as we can. Pull everything out. See, this bird's got quite a bit of fat on it. And we make a U-shaped cut here, down around the vent and back up. Pull that all out. And it looks like the heart and lungs came out in one shot, but if they didn't, then you go back in and get the heart and scoop the lungs out. They can be a little bit tricky. Yep. We make a little poke. We kind of truss them up for roasting. Works really nice, just like that. And then it goes into the cooler on ice. And it's kind of buried in the ice to cool before we package. And you just want to make sure that it's good and clean, so we always give them a final rinse down.
and get everything off of it. And that's it as far as evisceration goes. And we'll show it again here one more time.
And again, a little nick in the skin. Reach up in, separate the crop. This one's giving us some difficulty, of course. But once you get it separated, you work your fingers down underneath the esophagus and then pull straight back on all of it. Loosen it right up. Couple more little feathers. And you just pinch that skin, pull it up, and stick the knife through it. You just want to be sure not to rupture anything. And you can just kind of pull it back. This one's quite fat. This batch of birds did really, really well. Being smaller numbers, there's less competition for the food. I just want to kind of work that fat loose from the gizzard. Try to leave as much with the bird as we can. And then just pull straight back, pull everything out. Heart and lungs. They're usually what stays behind when you pull the rest of the stuff out. The heart and lungs usually stay in there, and the lungs can be a little tricky to get out. You got to kind of slide your finger down the rib cage under the lung, kind of roll it out, and then pull straight back, and they'll come right out. Now we pull up on the intestine and just make a U-shaped cut around it, and then you get that all out in one shot. And then trussing, just make a little poke in the skin, roll that drumstick down through it, and same thing on the other side. Just pull the skin up over it, and there you have it, ready for the oven.
And we dry pack our chickens in ice rather than an ice bath. We're fortunate enough to have an ice machine, so we have an abundant supply of fresh ice. But that way they don't sit in the contaminated water to chill. Now that all the birds are in the coolers and chilled, we'll move on to bagging them. We use heat shrink bags from Texas Poultry Supply. Slide it into the bag. Straw to get the air out that's stuck in the cavity. You want to squeeze as much air out as you can too, that helps. Zip tie. And then just a quick dunk in 190-degree water. The bag shrinks right around the chicken. Pull it out, finish pulling the zip tie, and there you have it. And now for labeling. We put the weight on all of our birds along with the price because we sell them. And the Vermont state and federal exemptions are also listed on there along with the warning labels about raw poultry. So when we're parting them out, we do wing sections, the flat and the drumette, thighs and leg quarters, boneless, skinless breasts, and 2 tenders. Now to get started with the wings, it's best to let the bird's weight help you. You kind of pick it up and put it under some tension, and then you just kind of want to find that joint and scoop the wing right out. Just be careful not to cut into the breast meat. Same thing on the other side. Again, I try to, if I can, point the knife towards the back of the bird so that you don't cut into that breast meat. It's really easy to do. And now with the leg quarter, just pick it up by its ankle, cut through the skin, and then you're going to want to flip the bird over. And you want to make sure you get that thigh meat called oyster meat that's up near the spine. You kind of slide your knife flat around there, cut through that, pop the hip joint, and then cut straight back and kind of angle towards the tail. It's almost like a V-shaped cut. And then you can take that right off. Same thing on this side. Cut through the skin. Let the bird hang. Those cuts should almost be touching at the back. You want to make sure you get that oyster meat. Pop the joint, and then get between the joint and work your way back through towards the tail. We'll set those aside and we'll separate those in a minute. Now, as far as the boneless, skinless breasts go, you want to make sure that you get under the membrane and the skin, and you can just kind of separate it with your fingers. And then just kind of roll it around the back of the bird to get it out of your way. Get that membrane right off. Now you make a little cut right up near where the wing attaches, just to get this cut started. Most of this is going to be tearing with your fingers. You can kind of work your finger down through. You can just see the tip of the tender right there, and that's what you want to follow down with your fingers. And just slide your fingers down and pull that meat right off. Once you get that separated, you just follow the wishbone and the keel bone down through and just cut the breast right off. There's one boneless, skinless breast. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Little cut to get it started. Again, find the tender. Slide your finger between the breast and the tender. Separate that meat right out. And now you can follow that bone. A little bit of cartilage in there we're going to have to trim off. And there, 2 boneless, skinless breasts. And now we'll do the tenders. Now these, you just want to follow the wishbone up and then cross the keel bone. There's a little bit of cartilage there. And then just cut right back towards the tail. Same thing on this side. It'll be an X-shaped cut. And if you do this right, you can peel it right out of there with your fingers. And then you just separate that meat from the bone. Use your knife if you need to, just to cut through that membrane on that side. There's one tender. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And it does help if you run your knife up the other side of the tender lightly just to score that membrane. And then just use the knife to finish the cut up near where the wing was. And there you have it. 2 boneless, skinless tenders, 2 boneless, skinless breasts. Now we'll do the leg quarters. You could leave these whole, but we usually separate them out. Now there's a fat line right there. Stay just towards the drumstick side of it, and you'll cut through that joint every time. If you're hitting bone, you're not in the right spot. Same thing again. That fat line, just a yellow fat line. It's where the muscles come together, and stay towards the drumstick and see how easily that cuts through. Now the wing sections, just cut down through that skin, favor towards the flat side, and there's the joint. Same thing with the wingtip. Those cut pretty easily. We usually put that in the body cavity for stock. Again, cut through the skin towards the flat side of the wing. Same thing, take the wingtip off. And there it is. Now, as far as packaging of cuts go, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's fairly self-explanatory, but we generally do 2 breasts to a pack, 6 tenders to a pack, 2 to 3 thighs to a pack, and usually 6 drumsticks. Just kind of, anybody can modify that to meet their individual needs, but generally that's the way we do breasts. We kind of put one way, one the other way, so they fit together nicely, and then we vacuum seal this in our chamber vac. All of our cuts we vacuum seal in these vacuum packs. They hold up really well, sucks all the air out of them, and they're really the best way to freeze things. This one was actually fairly inexpensive. Got under $200 by the time it was all said and done. And so far it's working really well. It's our 2nd season with this one. And there you have it. So that does it for this video. Thank you for following along, and thank you for following along with the series. If you found value in this content, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Have a great night.